The Last of Us TV series. The Last of Us is an American post-apocalyptic drama television series created by Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann for HBO, based on the 2013 video game developed by Naughty Dog. The series follows Joel Pedro Pascal, a smuggler tasked with escorting the teenage Ellie Bella Ramsey across a post-apocalyptic United States. The supporting cast features Gabriel Luna as Joel's younger brother Tommy, Merle Dandridge as Resistance leader Marlene, and Anna Tarv as Joel's smuggler partner Tess. American television series. American TV series or program The Last of Us, said to be the largest television production in Canadian history, was filmed in Alberta from July 2021 to June 2022. It is the first HBO series based on a video game and is a joint production by Sony Pictures Television, PlayStation Productions, Naughty Dog, The Mighty Mint, and Word Games. The first season consists of 9 episodes written by Druckmann, who wrote and co-directed the original game, and Mazin. The score was composed by Gustavo Santaolalla, who composed for the game, and David Fleming. The Last of Us premiered on January 15, 2023. It received acclaim from critics, who praised the performances, writing, production design, and score. Several called it the best live-action adaptation of a video game. The series premiere was watched by 4.7 million viewers across the linear channels and HBO Max on the first day, the second biggest for HBO since 2010. Cast and characters. See also, list of The Last of Us. Char actors Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey portray the lead characters. Joel and Ella. Pedro Pascal is Joel, a hardened middle-aged survivor who is tormented by the trauma of his past. Joel is tasked with smuggling a young girl, Ellie, out of a quarantine zone and across the United States. Unlike in the games, which required Joel to have moments of near superhuman abilities in order to allow the player to progress, he is more vulnerable in the series. His hard of hearing in one ear due to a gunshot and his knees ache when he stands. Pascal became available for a new series after the release of the second season of The Mandalorian, attracting several offers for projects from large networks, of which he chose The Last of Us, partly to work with co-creator Craig Mazin. Mazin and co-creator Neil Druckmann had been considering Pascal for some time. He accepted the role within 24 hours. The Mandalorian producers granted Pascal permission to work on the series. He is reportedly earning $600,000 per episode, making him one of the highest-paid American television stars. Pascal was chosen for his ability to portray a tough, tortured, and vulnerable character who suppresses his emotions until necessary. A non-gamer, Pascal watched his nephew play the beginning of the first game because he lacked the skill to play it himself. He found Joel to be so impressive but was concerned about imitating the games too closely, instead choosing to create a healthy distance and allow the showrunners to decide the characterization. Pascal based Joel's voice on his own experiences growing up in San Antonio, Texas, paring it back from the southern accent used in the game. In the video games, Joel is portrayed by Troy Baker. Bella Ramsey as Ellie, a 14-year-old girl who displays much defiance and anger but has a private need for kinship and belonging. She is immune to the cordyceps infection and may be the key to creating a vaccine. In keeping with the games, she is a lesbian. Around 105 actors had been considered for Ellie. The producers sought a performer who could portray a resourceful, quirky, and potentially violent character. After watching Ramsey's audition tape, they reached out to David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, showrunners of Game of Thrones, in which Ramsey had assured them of her talent. Ramsey secured the role less than a month after her audition. She received news of her casting during production on a different project. She said the show feels like the biggest thing ever done and was immediately comforted Pascal would perform alongside her for the entire experience. Ramsey was aware of the game before her audition, but was encouraged not to play to avoid replicating the original performance, instead watching some gameplay on YouTube to get a sense of it. She still had not played it after filming the series. Ramsey wanted her performance to be reminiscent of the games without copying them. Ramsey, who is English, learned an American accent for the role and had to cut off over 15 inches of hair. In the video games, Ellie is played by Ashley Johnson. Gabriel Luna as Tommy, Joel's younger brother and a former soldier who maintains idealism in his hope for a better world. About a month after the casting of Pascal and Ramsey, Luna was asked to submit an audition tape. He performed one scene from the game and one from the first episode. He was familiar with the work of Mazin and executive producer Carolyn Strauss, and had previously worked with HBO on True Detective. 1026 days after submitting his tape, he was offered the role by Mazin, Strauss, and Druckmann. According to Luna, they instantly knew he was the one. 153 He was enthusiastic for the role, having lived in Austin, Texas, Joel and Tommy's hometown around the same time as the show's setting. 220 And was given a PlayStation 5 during production to play the games as research. He provided input for Tommy's costume, such as the Texan plaid Indian paintbrush on his boots and his First Nations crafted belt buckle, which he felt Tommy found and treasured because it was just so well made. Luna believed Tommy desires a family like his brothers and a world in which people can return to peaceful living. He could relate to Joel's actions as an older brother, particularly as he had been the patriarch of his own family alongside his single mother. Luna partly took inspiration from Texans such as Willie Nelson and Chris Christopherson, particularly Christopherson for his relaxed attitude. In the video games, Tommy is played by Jeffrey Pearson, a Tarvis Tess, a hardened survivor and Joel's smuggler partner. Tarv and Pascal decided Tess and Joel had been lovers for some time, but, like in the game, were subtle about their relationship. She felt her performance required consistent truthfulness due to its subtlety. Tarv was aware of the games but had not played them. She watched the cutscenes after her casting. In the first game, Tess is played by Annie Wershingnico Parker as Sarah, Joel's daughter. Parker watched videos of the game years before getting the role. She wanted to stay away from the game version and provide her own interpretation of the character. She felt intimidated at the prospect of portraying Sarah's death due to its impact in the game. Pascal felt an instant bond with Parker, with whom he filmed scenes first. In the first game, Sarah is played by Hannah Hayes-Young. Hannah as Dr. Newman, an epidemiologist who issues a warning about the threat of fungi during a talk show. In Merle Dandridge as Marlene, the head of the Fireflies, a resistance movement hoping to gain freedom from the military. Dandridge reprised her role from the video games, the only actor to do so. Mazin and Druckmann felt, unlike most other actors from the game, she physically resembled her character, only requiring a wig. Dandridge revisited the game in preparation. She was consistently surprised by the physical elements on set, having only portrayed Marlene within a motion capture stage and suit during the games. She found the character had a heavier stillness in the show, which she attributed to the weight of living in a post-apocalyptic world. Josh Breener as the host of a talk show in 1968. The concept of the talk show was inspired by Dick Cavett and his long-running series, The Dick Cavett Show. 843 Christopher Heyerdahl as Dr. Sean Heiss, an epidemiologist on the 1968 talk show who is skeptical of Newman's warning. Brendan Fletcher as Robert, a thug and black market arms dealer in the Boston quarantine zone. In the first game, Robert is played by Robin Atkin. Downs Murray Bartlett as Frank, a survivalist living in an isolated town with Bill. Bartlett was unfamiliar with the source material but was drawn to the show after he read the script. He researched the game after receiving the role and found it cinematic, citing the characters, narrative, and themes. Frank is seen briefly in the first game as a corpse, but has no dialogue. Druckmann expected some fans to be upset by Frank's inclusion in the show due to the divergence from the game's narrative. Nick Offerman as Bill, a survivalist who lives with Frank. Con O'Neill was initially cast in the role, but was forced to drop out due to scheduling conflicts. Offerman stars in the third episode. In the first game, Bill is played by W. Earl Brown. Melanie Linsky as Kathleen, the leader of a revolutionary movement in Kansas City. Kathleen is an original character created by Mazin as the leader of a group of hunters who appeared in the game. Elmer Johnson as Henry, who is hiding from a revolutionary movement in Kansas City with his younger brother Sam. In the first game, Henry is played by Brandon Scott, and his scenes take place in Pittsburgh. Kevin Woodard as Sam, a deaf, artistic child who is hunted by violent revolutionaries alongside his brother Henry. In the first game, Sam is played by Najee Jeter. Graham Greene as Marlin, who lives with his wife Florence in the wilderness of Wyoming. Marlin is an original character for the television. Sarah Shalane Miles as Florence, who lives with her husband Marlin. Florence is an original Char actor. Storm Reed as Riley Abel, an orphan girl who is growing up in post-apocalyptic Boston. Reed was unfamiliar with the game prior to her casting. When approached to star in the show, she asked family and friends for their opinions on the game. Riley originally appeared in a downloadable content pack for the first game, The Last of Us: Left Behind, in which she is portrayed by Yanni King Scott Shepherd as David, a preacher who is the leader of a cannibalistic cult. Druckmann felt the series allowed a deeper look into the character's complexities than the game. In the first game, David is played by Nolan North, Troy Baker as James, a senior member of a group of settlers. Baker previously portrayed Joel in the video games, while James was played by Reuben Langdon in the first game. Mazin and Druckmann considered Baker's inclusion in the series important. Jeffrey Pierce as Perry, a rebel in a quarantine zone. Pierce previously portrayed Tommy in the video games. Perry is an original character in the show who, according to Pierce, has huge implications for things that occurred in the game. Ashley Johnson as Anna, Ellie's mother, 720, a lone pregnant woman forced to give birth under frightening circumstances. Johnson previously portrayed Ellie in the video games. Druckmann was unable to explore Anna's story in the games but considered it personally important to include in the series. 720 Mazin and Druckmann similarly considered Johnson's inclusion important to Rutina Wesley as Maria, the leader of a settlement in Jackson, Wyoming. In the games, Maria is played by Ashley Scott. Episodes. The Last of Us was created by Craig Mazin left and Neil Druckmann right. Druckmann wrote and co-directed the video game after the release of Naughty Dog's video game The Last of Us in 2013. Two film adaptations were attempted, a feature film written by the game's writer and creative director Neil Druckmann and produced by Sam Raimi entered development hell, and an animated short film adaptation by Oddfellows was cancelled by Sony due to the extensive development of a film based on Uncharted, another game series by Naughty Dog. Druckmann ensured specific plot points were included when negotiating a deal with film and television studios. He felt more closely connected to The Last of Us's creation and development than Uncharted's, and always wanted to be involved in its adaptation in some manner. In March 2020, a television adaptation was announced in the planning stages at HBO, expected to cover events of the first game. Alongside Druckmann, Craig Mazin was named to help write and executive produce the series, while television producer Carolyn Strauss and Naughty Dog president Evan Wells were named executive producers, and Gustavo Santaolalla, who worked on the games, the show's composer. The show was announced as a joint production of Sony Pictures Television, PlayStation Productions, and Naughty Dog. It is the first show produced by PlayStation Productions. It is produced under the company name Bear and Pear Productions. Joan Rank, Mazin's collaborator on Chernobyl, was announced as executive producer and director of the series premiere in June 2020. He dropped out by November due to scheduling conflicts as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. HBO greenlit the series on November 20. PlayStation Productions is Sid Kizilbush and Carter Swan were named executive producers, and Word Games, a production company. In January 2021, The Mighty Men joined production, and Cantemir Baladov was announced as the pilot episode's director. He had been interested in adapting the game for years and was set to direct several opening episodes. In October 2022, Baladov said he left the project a year prior due to creative differences. Rose Lamb was added as executive producer in February 2021. Pre-production in Calgary, Alberta, began on March 15. Mazin arrived in May. Ali Abbasi and Jasmine Labani were announced as directors in April. In July 2021, the Directors Guild of Canada revealed Peter Hoare was assigned to direct, followed in August by Mazin, in September by Druckmann, and in January 2022 by Lisa Johnson and Jeremy Webb. In February, Druckmann confirmed he directed an episode and felt his experience reinforced and reflected his experience in directing games. After several months traveling between Calgary and Los Angeles, Druckmann struggled to fulfill obligations at Naughty Dog and returned home to advise remotely, feeling confident in Mazin's Last of Us is said to be the largest television production in Canadian history, expected to generate over $200 million in revenue for Alberta. Several sources suggest the budget is between $1 million and $1 million per episode. The New Yorker claimed it exceeded the first 5 seasons of Game of Thrones. Calgary film officials felt the production team partly chose Alberta for production due to the government's 2021 decision to remove its tax credit cap of $10 million per project. Canadian Artists Union ITSE 212 claimed the production led to a 30% increase in union membership and employment. In July 2021, Mazin said the first season would consist of 10 episodes. In November 2022, the 9-episode count was confirmed. The first episode was originally written as 2. They were combined after executives at HBO felt the original first episode would not compel viewers to return the following week. 10/27 Mazin suggested a second season is likely if the first is well received. The first season covers the events of the first game and its downloadable expansion The Last of Us, Left Behind 2014. Druckmann and Mazin suggested a second season would immediately cover the sequel, The Last of Us Part II 2020, to avoid filler, though Mazin felt Part II would require more than 1 season. He does not want the series to overtake the narrative of the games. The writers ensured characters remained true to their developments in Part II in case the show received additional seasons. The production team includes 5 art directors and hundreds of technicians. The game's art director, concept artists, and environment artists provided feedback on the costumes and sets. Paul Becker choreographed the series, and Barry Gowers, the prosthetics designer, responsible for the designs of the infected elastic, created the show's title sequence. Mazin enjoyed the idea of the fungus appearing beautiful despite its destructive nature. 1240 Visual Effects Studio D&EG are involved with the series, supervised by Alex Wang. They consulted with Naughty Dog's concept artists when creating infected creatures. The show's editors are Timothy A. Good and Emily Mendes. Pedro Pascal left and Gabriel Luna Wright on set in Canmore, Alberta in November. Casting took place virtually through Zoom due to the COVID-19 pandemic. For International Women's Day on March 8, 2020, Druckmann confirmed several of the characters from the games would appear in the show, including Ellie, Riley, Tess, Marlene, and Maria. On February 10, 2021, Pascal and Ramsey were cast as Joel and Ellie. Earlier that day, it was reported Mahershala Ali was offered the role of Joel after Matthew McConaughey turned it down. The Hollywood Reporter noted Ali did circle a role in the show, but a deal was never formed. Any actresses considered for Ellie for the cancelled film adaptation such as Maisie Williams and Caitlin Dever had aged out of consideration by the time the series was in production, resulting in a reset of candidates. The producers primarily sought actors who could embody Joel and Ellie individually as well as imitate their relationship. 242 Pascal and Ramsey did not meet before filming began but found they had instant chemistry which developed over the course of production. Luna's casting as Tommy was announced on April 15, 2021, and Dandridge was confirmed to reprise her role of Marlene from the video games on May 27. In May, Classic Casting circulated a casting call for extras from Calgary, Fort Macleod, Pie River, and Lethbridge. Anyone over 18 could apply, and those with vehicles from 1995 to 2003 were recommended. It was announced Parker was cast as Sarah on June 30. Pierce, Bartlett, and O'Neill's casting as Perry, Frank, and Bill was announced on July 15, followed by Torbs as Tess on July 22. On December 5, 2021, Bartlett claimed Offerman would appear on the show in a role close to his. 2 days later, Offerman was announced to be playing Bill, replacing O'Neill, who was forced to drop out due to scheduling conflicts. On December 9, Banny revealed the casting of Green, Miles, and Wesley Wright's casting as Riley Abel was announced on January 14, 2022. In February, Mazin distributed a casting call for a boy aged who is deaf, black, and proficient in American Sign Language or Black American Sign Language. Deaf West Theater confirmed this was for the character of Sam, who will appear in 2 episodes filmed in March and April. In June, Druckmann announced Baker and Ashley Johnson would star in the series. Their character names were revealed in December. Lamar Johnson and Woodard's casting as Henry and Sam was announced in August, alongside the official announcement of Green and Miles as Marlon and Florence. Linsky's casting as Kathleen was announced alongside the teaser trailer in September, while Shepard's casting was revealed in the first trailer in December. Wesley's role as Maria was announced on January. Mazin and Druckmann wrote the series. Mazin, a fan of the video game, having played it about 12 times, was introduced to Druckmann through Shannon Woodward, a mutual friend who portrayed Dina in Part 2. Druckmann, a fan of Mazin's series Chernobyl, was originally working on a film adaptation of the game. Mazin felt it required the length and pacing of a television series, and Druckmann agreed. Druckmann was convinced Mazin was the ideal creative partner for the series after witnessing his passion for the game's story. Druckmann referred to Mazin as the story's co-parent. Mazin said the series may represent a paradigm shift for film and television adaptations of video games due to the strength of the narrative, noting it would only take 20 minutes on Google to realize The Last of Us is the Lawrence of Arabia of video game narratives. Druckmann felt the most important element of adapting the game was to keep the soul, particularly the character relationships, whereas the gameplay and action sequences were of minimal importance. Mazin said the changes were designed to fill things out and expand, not to undo, but enhance. He said the series would avoid episodic storylines, such as random encounters not present in the original story. Content cut from the game would be added to the show, including one jaw-drop moment Druckmann described to him. Druckmann said some scripts borrow dialogue directly from the game, while others deviate. Some of the game's action-heavy sequences were changed to focus on character drama at the encouragement of HBO. Druckmann said the series was taking the opposite approach to adaptation in the film Uncharted 2022. While Uncharted tells a new story with moments from the games to give an Uncharted flavor, The Last of Us is a closer adaptation, allowing alterations such as changing character perspectives in a manner unachievable in an immersive game. Unlike creating the games, Druckmann felt he was able to unplug from the characters when writing the show due to the immersive nature of video games. The writers found the series an opportunity to delve into backstories of characters who the game otherwise ignored. Wanting to better understand their motivations, Druckmann was open to changing any aspects of the games but always wanted a strong reason, ensuring he and Mazin considered the impacts on events later in the narrative. The game's outbreak takes place in 2013, while its post-apocalyptic narrative occurs in 2033. This was changed to 2003 and 2023, as the writers felt the story taking place simultaneously with the show's release was more interesting and real and did not fundamentally change the story. The writers added the outbreak's origins to the series to ground the narrative. Following COVID-19, they recognized audiences are more knowledgeable about viral pandemics than they once were. Borrowing from an approach he had used in writing Chernobyl, Mazin began the series with a segment of a fictional Earth talk show explaining the origins of a fungal infection, implying humanity knew of the potential risk for some time. For the show, the writers removed the spores through which the infection is spread in the games, replacing it with tendrils that form a unified, interconnected network. The writers avoided making a zombie show, acknowledging that infected creatures were ultimately a vessel through which the characters are pressured to make interesting decisions and reveal their true selves. Rotten Tomatoes listed the titles of the first 3 episodes in December 2022 and the 5th through 8th in January. High River Fort Macludras Howard way Alberta Legislature Building Camera 8. Calgary filming took place in High River and Fort Macleod in July 2021, in downtown Edmonton in October, and in Canmore and Calgary in November. Supervising location manager Jason Nolan began preparation work for the series in January 2021, leading a 115-person team that found and transformed more than 180 locations. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, cast and crew quarantined for 2 weeks after entering Canada. Ksenia Sarita worked as cinematographer alongside Balabev and Druckmann, Evan Bolter with Hoare and Webb, Christine A. Mayer with Banny, and Nanam Carlson with Abasi. Members of the cast and crew arrived in Calgary in June. Luna posted the first photo from set alongside Balabev, Pascal, Parker, and Sarita on July 2. Filming began in Calgary, Alberta, on July 12, a week later than originally scheduled. On July 12, High River approved the production team's request to film in the former Beechwood area between July and October. The production paid $100,000 for community funding and reimbursed the town $15,000 for the removal of 3 trees in the area. Filming in High River took place in the evenings of July, before moving to Fort Macleod from July. Following months of rehearsals and preparations, including polling businesses and residents, storefronts were changed to fit the show. The set featured police cars from Austin, Texas, the location of the game's prologue. Production returned to High River in the evening of July 29, before moving to Calgary in August. 3 blocks were constructed over several months near Stampede Park for use in production, recreating a quarantine zone in Boston. Balladov's work had completed production by August 30. He later left the project entirely due to creative differences. By September, Tarv was filming in Canada. Hoar's episodes completed production on October 5, 2021. Filming took place in and around Rice Howard Way in downtown Edmonton from October. Pascal filmed establishing shots in the area in early October and returned for full production later in the month alongside Ramsey and Tarv. The location replicated a post-apocalyptic Boston and was set up with a large crater in front of an Italian restaurant and a green screen for the skyline. The production crew converted a local business into a ruined salon and asked another if they would permit a stunt performer to fly through the front window. Production took place at the Alberta Legislature building, which was dressed with vines and greenery. Production spent around $372,000 for a 4-day shoot in Edmonton. Filming took place in downtown Calgary from October, followed by Beltline from October. Shutting down the 4th Avenue flyover took the location's team around 6 to 8 weeks of negotiations with the city. Druckmann's episodes completed production by November 7, or for the 7th episode, Canmore, Alberta, was used to replicate Jackson, Wyoming, the location of Tommy's community in the game. Production occurred in the town from November, with Pascal, Ramsey, and Luna present on set. Approximately 300 extras were used, as well as horses. Most businesses in the town signed agreements regarding the show's impact, with the production paying between $1,000 and $1,500 per day. In late November, filming occurred at Mount Royal University and the Southern Alberta Institute of Technology (SAIT), expected to recreate the fictional University of Eastern Colorado from the game. Snow was removed at SAIT and foliage was added to both locations to produce an autumnal setting. Fanny's episodes completed production by December 9, 2021. In January 2022, Northland Village Mall in northwest Calgary was decorated for production. Production moved to Okotoks in January. Filming occurred from February. Residents noted the production brought increased business to the area. 28 storefront businesses were supported by the production, leading to $18,000 in revenue for the town. Production moved to the Waterton Lakes National Park from February 2022. Vehicles on set featured Colorado license platist Airport Trail in northeast Calgary saw closures from March for production. Webb's episodes entered production in March 2022 and continued until the end of principal photography in June. Lamar Johnson and Woodard were on set in Calgary on March 23. The scenes take place in Kansas City, Missouri, replacing Pittsburgh as seen in the game. Production continued in Calgary in April, including around the Calgary Courts Center, Kensington, and Victoria Park. Pascal and Ramsey were on set in Calgary in May, followed some days later by military vehicles representing FEDRA. Later in May, photographs revealed a hospital set, expected to recreate the game's finale sequence. Production moved to Olds in late May and early June, with several local businesses contracted to assist with construction and design. A mural painted for the production, originally scheduled to be removed, was later approved to remain in the town. The final day of principal photography was June 10, 2022, 2 days later than originally scheduled. Production concluded in the early hours of June 11. Additional photography took place on Interstate 435 in Kansas, Setibeth in Kansas, and Missouri in October. Santaola and David Fleming composed the score for the television series. The former wrote its opening theme. He said Latino viewers will recognize touches of his music, and drew on his experiences in film and television, having composed the themes and some tracks for Jane the Virgin and Making a Murderer. Release and promotion. To promote the show, Troy Baker, Ashley Johnson, Bella Ramsey, and Pedro Pascal presented Best Action Game at the Game Awards in December. While the series was originally indicated to begin airing in 2022, HBO and HBO Max Chief Content Officer Casey Bloys denied this in February 2022 and clarified it would begin in 2023 for The Last of Us Day on September 26. 2021, HBO shared the first image of Pascal and Ramsey in costume, followed by the first still from the series at Summer Game Fest on June 10, 2022. The first footage of the show was revealed in an HBO Max trailer during the premiere of House of the Dragon on August 21, 2022, featuring Pascal, Ramsey, Parker, and Offerman. The September 2022 release of The Last of Us Part E, a remake of the original game, was partly based on the potential to introduce show viewers to the games. The first teaser trailer for the show was released for The Last of Us Day on September 26, 2022, featuring the first footage of Luna, Dandridge, Tarv, and Reed, and confirming the 2023 release window and Linsky's casting. The teaser's music, Alone and Forsaken by Hank Williams, was featured in the game and used in one of its trailers. The teaser received over 17 million views in less than 24 hours across Twitter and YouTube following leaks from Sky and HBO Max. On November 2, HBO announced the series would premiere in the United States on January 15, 2023, and released the first official poster. It is broadcast on HBO in the United States and is available to stream in resolution on HBO Max. It is released on Binge in Australia, Crave in Canada, Disney Hotstar in India, Neon in New Zealand, and Sky Group channels, and now in Germany and Austria, Italy, Switzerland, and the United Kingdom and Ireland. The first episode received its red carpet world premiere in Westwood, Los Angeles on January 9, followed by theater screenings in Budapest and Sydney on January 11 and New York City on January 12. A short clip of Joel and Ellie hiding from a clicker was released on November 16 to tease the show's appearance at CCXP the following month. Posters for 11 characters were released on November 30. Dandridge, Druckmann, Luna, Mazin, Pascal, and Ramsey appeared on a panel at CCXP on December 3, where the first full trailer was released, revealing the first appearances of Baker, Ashley Johnson, and Shepard. Baker, Ashley Johnson, Pascal, and Ramsey presented at the Game Awards 2022 in December. HBO announced Baker would host a companion podcast alongside the series, featuring Mazin and Druckmann. In January 2023, Pascal and Ramsey were featured on the cover of The Hollywood Reporter, while Pascal was on the cover of Wired. HBO released the first behind-the-scenes featurette on January 6, and several press outlets published interviews with cast and crew based on roundtable discussions from the previous month. Ramsey appeared on Jimmy Kimmel Live on January 9, alongside a clip from the series. A season trailer was released after the airing of the first episode on January 15, and a 2-hour trial of The Last of Us Part I was made available for PlayStation Plus Premium members. Performances of supporting cast Murray Bartlett, Nick Offerman, and Melanie Linsky were widely praised by critics and review aggregator Rotten Tomatoes. The Last of Us has an approval rating of % based on 117 reviews, with an average rating of. The website's general consensus reads, retaining the most addictive aspects of its beloved source material while digging deeper into the story. The Last of Us is binge-worthy TV that ranks among the all-time greatest video game adaptations. Metacritic calculated an average of 84 out of 100 based on 39 reviews, indicating universal acclaim. Several reviewers considered it the best live-action adaptation of a video game, with GameSpot's Mark Delaney saying it feels like the beginning of a new era for the genre. Cast's performances received widespread acclaim, with critics singling out the chemistry between Pascal and Ramsey for praise. Evening Standard's Vicky Jessup said the two steal every scene they're in, while Rolling Stone's Alan Sepinwall called them compulsively watchable and almost instantly endearing. Empire's John Nugent and Film's Valerie Ettenhofer referred to Pascal's performance as the best of his career, citing his ability to portray nuance and rare vulnerability. Tech Critics Axel Metz described him as the perfect real-world manifestation of Joel. Several critics found Ramsey gave the show's breakout performance for her balance of comedy and emotion, with Times' Judy Berman calling her the show's greatest asset and Simon Cardy applauding her for making her mark on Ellie, a character already considered iconic long before Ramsey's portrayal. The performances of Tarv, Offerman, and Bartlett were highly praised, with the latter two being described by Complex's William Goodman as career best and by Inverse Days Johnston as Emmy-worthy. Annette's Sean Keane found Linsky gave her character a quiet menace and called Shepard's performance charismatic. Reviewers praised the differences from the original game's narrative implemented by Mazin and Druckmann, and some believed the scenes lifted directly from the game were among the weakest and led to issues with pacing. Variety's Daniel Daddario felt the show relied too heavily on action sequences, while Tech Critics Metz wanted more action. Cardy wrote the series often shines brightest during its quietest moments. Critics overwhelmingly considered the third episode the season's best, and some named it among the greatest episodes of television overall. The Hollywood Reporter's Daniel Finberg felt it elevated the series to a new level, and Empire's Nugent called it moving, surprisingly romantic, and one of the finest hours of television in recent memory. Some critics found the first episode well-made but too familiar, and Films Ettenhofer considered it the season's weakest. Robert Burtcomb's Brian Tallarico found the final two episodes rushed. Several critics lauded the production design. Digital Spy's David Opie wrote, "Every set feels like it was ripped straight out of the game." Conversely, Slant Magazine's Pat Brown felt environments appeared too manicured and carefully placed. Inverse Johnston praised the use of lighting to highlight the humanity of both the characters and creatures, and called the cinematography something other video game adaptations could only dream of. TV Guide's Keith Phipps called the series visually striking, and Cardy wrote it as often a sight to behold. Santalala's score received praise, with Annette's keen feeling it added a yearning of sadness to the narrative. Earth premiere episode had 4.7 million viewers in the United States on its first night of availability, including linear viewers and streams on HBO Max, making it the second largest debut for HBO since 2010 behind House of the Dragon.